Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a knob capture of the drive knob on the TS9 Tubescreamer pedal. So the difference between this type of model and the snapshot model that I've made videos of in the past is that this will capture the entire range of this knob, and you can adjust that in the Proteus plugin, and it will hopefully sound really close to the real thing. The Proteus plugin is very similar to the Smart Pedal, except that underneath the hood it uses a completely different neural network model, which is much faster, so you can stack multiple instances of the plugin, whereas with Smart Pedal you can really only use one or two at the most. And also in Proteus I'm able to use stereo processing, and the CPU usage is much more comparable to more commercial plugins. Here's my setup. I have my audio device, which is going to play our Proteus capture utility wave file out of the just the headphone jack, and that's going into this small reamp box, and the output of that is going into the Tubescreamer pedal. And then that audio is going back into the channel 1 of my Focusrite, which will be recorded in each of these 5 tracks. And for each of these 5 tracks, I'm going to be increasing the drive knob from 0, then to 25%, 50%, 75%, and then 100%. And those 5 audio recordings will allow us to capture the full range of the drive knob. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that each of my recording tracks are muted before I arm anything, so I don't create a feedback loop there. Next, I'm going to do a test to make sure that everything sounds good with the audio that I'm going to try and capture. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm just going to arm this first track and make sure and have this first track unmuted so that it's being played out of my audio device. And I'm going to hit record, and I'm just going to look at the levels that are being recorded right there and make sure that there's no clipping or that it's not too quiet. Now, when you're running this test, it's a good idea to go ahead and put your device on the loudest setting that you plan on having it at, and then just to make sure that there's no clipping when that happens. Right now, get in focus. Right now, there is some clipping. This is showing up as red, so I'm going to adjust this, and then I'm going to listen to that audio and make sure that it sounds all right, because the audio that you record here is going to be what the neural net tries to capture when we run that software. All right, I have my levels set the way I want it, so I'm going to start the capture. I have the drive at 0, tone straight down the middle, same with level, and I have my recorded track armed and muted, and the Proteus capture file unmuted. And I will start that recording. So the first part of this wave file is some generated audio, some sine sweeps, which is gonna sound funny if you listen to it, and it's followed by some noise, and doing this at the beginning of the capture has shown to help the accuracy. And then the rest of the audio is guitar playing and bass playing for the remaining about 3 minutes. Okay, the first recording finished, so I'm going to save it. And then make sure I'm starting at the beginning again. I'm going to disarm that, keep it muted, and keep that muted, arm the next one. And then I'm going to increase my drive here to about 25%. So that's halfway between there and there. Should be about there. And I'm going to hit record. And then we'll just repeat that each time until we get to the max drive recording. So now we'll move that up to 50%. And record. This one is finishing up, so save it. Move this up to 75%. Let's see, way out there, and hit record. Hey, Copper. And this one's finishing up, and we will do our last one. This one's easy, just put it all the way up. And hit record. All right, so this is finishing up. The whole process took about 20 minutes to make these 5 recordings. I also wanted to mention that anytime you want to just do a snapshot model, all you need is just one output recording. And that's a neural network model that will be your device at one particular setting, like the TS9 at 100% or just 75% with the same tone settings and volume settings. Now what we're doing, I think, is more interesting. We're capturing the whole range of this drive knob, and I think it's going to sound really good. Now that we have our 5 recordings from the TS9 pedal, we need to render those out as individual WAV files. So the way you do that in Reaper is, first I'm going to unmute everything, and I'm going to go to File and Render. And I'm going to select Master Mix. Nope, not Master Mix. I'm going to select Selected Tracks or Stems, which will take each of those tracks and render them out as an individual file. Now, I've named each of these tracks just a name that I can know what it is. So I have TS9 drive 0, and then drive 25, 50, 75, and 100, so that when Reaper creates these WAV files, it'll name them that way. And to make sure it does that, you need to select under the file name wildcards and select the track as the wildcard. And I'll just have that as the entire file name. And I will put it on the desktop. And the other settings you need to worry about are sample rate. You want to have that at 44,144.1 kilohertz. For channels, it needs to be mono. Format wave, wave bit depth, change that to 16-bit PCM. And deselect any other data like the tail, write BWF, remove that. No tempo information. And let's see, and then in Reaper, if you have the selected tracks option set, you need to actually select your tracks. So I selected my 5 recorded tracks, leaving out the Proteus capture file. So now it says render 5 files, and we're going to do that. There we go. All right, and it has rendered those out right here to my desktop for each of those tracks. Okay, from here we are going to take it to a website called Google Colab, and Colab is a great service that's free to use by Google, and it gives you access to their GPUs, graphics processing units, to run code, to run machine learning tasks such as this. And so we're going to make use of that because honestly, it's much faster than my personal computer. So that's what we're going to do. Now you will need a Google account, a Gmail, to be able to use Colab. So the first thing we're going to do, this is just the default page. We're going to go File, Upload Notebook, and we're going to choose our Proteus capture file and upload that. And this is different from the Smart Pedal capture file. It uses different code, totally different. Don't try and mix the two. All right, there it is. So the first thing we want to do is upload our recorded wave samples for the TS9 Tubescreamer. Nope. So I put them in here, and I'm just going to select them all. Before you do that, make sure you double-click this icon here on the left, this folder icon. That will make sure that it has the file browser loaded, and you can just drag and drop your WAV files there. Drag and drop. And that shouldn't take too long. Just make sure that these files are completely uploaded before you try and run the code. Okay, now that these have finished being uploaded to Google server, we want to rename these files to out and then 1 through 5. So I'm going to take this drive 0 and rename it to out1.wave, all lowercase, no spaces. And that's just so that the code I wrote knows which files to get and how to set it up. So I'm going to rename the 25% out2, and I'm just right-clicking on these files here. The 50% rename to out3, 75% to out4, and the 100% to out5. And you'll do this no matter which what device you're trying to capture. That's just so that my code knows how to get your audio data. Now this first block right here is just all the instructions, so you can read that if you like, but I'm just going to go to the first step, which is set up environment. So all you have to do to run this is click the arrow. So that is loading up all the code that it needs to be able to do this capture. And this uses an open source machine learning AI tool called PyTorch. The other big one is TensorFlow. This one uses PyTorch, and it's done. That was really fast. All right, so the next steps are the important ones, the fun ones. This is going to take our data and create a neural network model that you can then load into Proteus once it's done. Now the first three here are if you're doing a snapshot model. If you only have one output file, you want to use one of those first three. And the three that I have here are particular to your device. You run step 4A if you have a clean amp, edge of breakup amp, or compressor. 4B is a medium to high gain amp, and step 4C is for a pedal, overdrive, distortion, or boost. Now I should mention up front that this code does not do any kind of time-based effects capture such as delay or reverb. It can't handle those. It's only more distortion-based or any kind of amplifier that you have. So the step we're interested in, because we're doing a knob model, is step 4D. So everything is set up behind the scenes to run this. As long as you have your 5 wave files named out1 through out5, you can just run this and it will go. it'll know what to do. And so if you're doing a snapshot model, this process will take less than 10 minutes. For the knob models, this will take much longer. It has a lot more data to churn through. So this will take probably about 45 minutes, but I will let you know how long it took at the end of this process. So one important thing that I didn't mention is that you need to make sure that the runtime is set to GPU. Now, in this Colab script that I wrote, I think I have it set so that it'll automatically try to use the GPU runtime, but it's always a good idea to double check. So just click underneath this runtime drop down, change runtime type, and if this does not say GPU, then change it to GPU and hit save. All right, the training has been going on for about a half hour. It's not done. It's set to be done when it gets to epoch 300, and it's at 232 right now. But as I'm looking at these loss values, they're not really going down, so I'm going to go ahead and stop that. And we'll roll with that model. So the next thing you do after the training is done, or you stopped it, is you run step 5, which will generate a Proteus compatible model file, and that'll pop out in the left-hand file browser menu. So I'm going to hit run, and it's really fast, and you usually have to refresh that that file browser menu, and it is named New Proteus Model, and you're going to want to rename that to something that you can remember. I'm going to rename this to TS9 Drive Knob, and then I'm going to download that. Make sure you do that, because once you leave Colab, you won't be able to get back to your same session. And the last step is optional, step 6. It's going to generate a graph that will show you how close your model got to the actual sound. Okay, that finished. I'm going to hit refresh, and it will be named Proteus Knob Detail Signal Comparison. And double click that, and it will show you a couple of graphs. The one you're interested in is this middle one. The red line is the target. It's your actual data from the TS9 pedal. And the green line is the predicted, the one that the model was able to generate. And as you can see, it's slightly different in places, but mostly it's very close. So now let's test this model in the Proteus plugin. Alright, now that we have captured our TS9 Tubescreamer pedal, we don't need it anymore. We can just throw it in the trash. Kidding. The neural network models are not going to be an exact replica of your pedal. They are going to be really close, but a model is always just an approximation. So even though it might sound really good, there's no substitute for the real thing. What these models do give you is the flexibility to share these, to email them to your friends, do whatever you want with them. As always, thanks for watching, and you can download Proteus from GuitarML.com along with the capture utility file, and check out the tone library because I have a few captures on there for you guys to check out, including the one in this video.